Hi, I'm Pam and I'm here to talk about video games. And so is Lily. So today I'm here with another edition of Unpopular Opinions, and this one is focusing on popular games that I don't think are any good, or at least I don't like playing. So the first game I'm going to talk about has gotten extra popular lately with the introduction of a multiplayer patch, and that is Stardew Valley. It's an indie game that was for the most part developed by one guy. He did the coding, the art, the music, everything, which is really impressive. It's just not the kind of game for me. What are you doing? Okay. Thank you. Thank you for your input there. It's sort of like a farming simulator, I guess you'd call it, like a country life adventure. It's very much taking after games like Harvest Moon or Animal Crossing, and honestly, I kind of knew from the very start that this wasn't the kind of game for me. It looked kind of mundane, it looked like a chore simulator, but when it got announced for the Nintendo Switch, I thought, hey, I'll give it a shot, which was actually very foolish of me because that was just combining a genre I don't like with a platform I don't like. For some reason, I thought I'd like playing it on handheld when I don't really like playing anything on handheld. So I got it. I didn't like it. I found it very slow. I didn't like how long it takes to travel everywhere. I didn't like how just mundane it was. Buy some seeds, find some seeds, plant the seeds, wait for them to grow. I know there's a lot of people who really like it, find it very relaxing, or find it like are accomplishing something in game, but I feel the exact opposite, where when I'm growing these plants and finding out what exactly I should be planting and growing, I could be spending that time learning how to make the plants I buy for my balcony not die within a week every time I buy them, instead of doing it in video game form. So the next game that is generally well regarded, but I hated, and I'm probably going to get pretty ranty on this one, but it's Nier Automata, and this is a game that should have been my jam. It's all about androids fighting with machines, trying to protect humanity, and has all kinds of questions about what makes someone human, and artificial intelligence, and why everyone, humanity, androids, anything, are always just driven to kill. And it sounds like an interesting game. It also does something I love, which is combine two different genres when it comes to gameplay. It does both sort of a hack and slash action, and it does a shoot 'em up and like a twin stick shooter action, which is awesome. I love it when games do that. But design-wise, the game just made so many decisions that made me angry, and as much as I tried, and I probably tried too hard, I just couldn't like it. So right off the bat, Nier started getting under my skin, in the bad way, not the good way. You go through, probably the first time I did it, it took like 30-40 minutes. There's some air combat or mech combat, there's some hack and slash combat, and then at the end, there's a boss. And throughout this whole time, there's no save points. You haven't unlocked the ability to save the game yet. And you also haven't unlocked the menu system. If you open up the menu at the start of the game, it's just sort of like gibberish android language or something. So I had to look up a screenshot in order to invert the y-axis, which I kind of need to play since that's how I play my games. I got to the boss at the end of it and I died. And since there's no save points, you just have to go right back to the start of the game, which is a real piss off. Don't do that, games. It's just, I should have known. I should have known right there. This is not the game for you. Pam, cut your losses. But I kept going because I just kept hearing good things about the game. As you're going through the environment, they're not the most interesting of environments. There's some things to find, there's some things to fight, but honestly the hack and slash is not super interesting combat. Some of the side quests and like the characters you can talk to are interesting, but just the traveling on its own isn't that fun, and it takes forever, what felt like forever, to unlock fast travel, which again, mistake number 2 in this game. the second thing that's really gonna piss me off because I don't like my time being wasted. And then the sort of big one is that you need to complete the game 5 times in order to see the full story. Had they called them something else, had they just called them chapters, chapter 1 through 5, rather than playthrough A through E, I might have my mind might have been a little bit more open to the idea of it, but the fact that you have to play through 5 times, apparently the last 3 are quite different, but playthrough A and B are almost exactly the same. You play a different character in B, but you see, I'd say 80 to 90% of the same scenes, you get the same problems, fast travel still doesn't unlock until the same point in the game. So after playthrough B, I was just upset that I had spent an extra 5 or 6 hours playing through the exact same things I had done before, but I still went and tried playthrough C. And in playthrough C, the android you're playing gets corrupted and you start losing all your abilities, so your buttons will just stop working. The map, which also kind of sucks, told me I had to go in a certain way. There was a time limit to get there, and I thought it was telling me to go one way, which was in this giant pit that you had been in earlier in the game. That was not the correct way to go, and at this point I had lost the ability to jump or climb ladders, so I couldn't get out of the pit, so I just sat there until my timer ran out and I died. And then the last checkpoint was like 20 minutes earlier. I was gonna have to do that whole scene again, and I finally decided, fuck this. I hate Nier Automata. I never want to play this again. Maybe one day, it's been like months since I played through the beginning of C. Maybe one day I will look up the rest of it on the internet and find out what everyone's talking about when they say nice things about this game. But as it is, it just made so many bad design choices that just ruined any good story and character stuff that was there. And yeah, I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. And it's also way too anime, and I don't like anime. Now Max is here. So the next one is another indie game that sort of took the internet by storm a few years ago. It's from 2015, it's an RPG, and it is Undertale. And Undertale is a game that I like hearing about it. I like reading articles about it. I like when people discuss it on podcasts. But when it comes to actually playing the game myself, I did not have a good time at all. You play this child who gets sort of caught in this underworld full of monsters, and the thing about the game is that you don't have to fight the monsters if you don't want to. You can go through the game without ever killing anything, which sounds cool, and again, just from all of the discussion I've heard about it, it sounds like it does some really cool things down the road with what your choices are and how those sort of carry across. But I just found the game really not pleasant to look at, and I also didn't like the combat. When you're playing, you can threaten enemies or compliment them or flirt with them, and you have to sort of find out the right thing to do. And when it's their turn, you get this little mini bullet hell in the middle of your screen, and you're a little heart in the middle, and you just have to avoid the bullets that are coming at you. But it's a PC game, so you have to do it with your directional keys, or WASD, which is not a good way to play bullet hell shooters. I just did not like the combat or the mechanics or the aesthetics at all, but yeah, I do like hearing other people talk about it. The next game is a graphic novel. It's actually a series of 3 that together form the Nonary games. The only one of the series I played, though, is called 999, which is short for, oh god, what's it short for? 9 doors, 9 hours, 9 people, except I probably didn't get those in the right order. It basically kind of sells itself as a escape room in a video game, which actually sounds really cool. 9 people at the beginning find that they've been sort of captured and put on this cruise liner, which is sinking, and they have to escape. So you start out playing one character, and you basically have to solve puzzles to get out of the room, and then as you go, you sort of meet the other characters that are stuck in there with you, and sort of have to work together to solve puzzles, and you can make decisions on sort of which way you go, who you travel with, that will impact sort of how the game ends. So this is a game that I should have liked. I really like puzzle games and escape rooms. Visual novels, but I found that while the premise was really interesting, the writing was just complete garbage. I hated it. The writing used the sort of adage that, like, why use 20 words to say what you mean when you could use 200? No one would shut the fuck up. I hated every character by the time I got a couple hours into it. As much as they might have started out interesting, they just never ever stopped talking. And a second thing that I don't like about it is that there's multiple endings. Again, you have to play through it multiple times if you want to see the true ending, and there was no way in hell that I was going to play through the game multiple times. So the 999 and the Nonary games, another one, just not a fan. Just like, get an editor, man. So the next one is one of the earlier Telltale games that a lot of people liked, and that is The Wolf Among Us. This one takes place in the Fables universe, and I think Fables is a series of graphic novels, if I'm not mistaken, which has fairy tale characters, but they are living in the real world. So you play Bigby Wolf, who is the big bad wolf, who is the sheriff. For me, this is where Telltale sort of showed me its hand in making you think that you have a lot of control over a story, but actually not really having that much. I remember a few key decisions where I thought, oh no, this is like a life or death situation, something's gonna happen, and then as they played out, I realized that the decision I made wasn't all that important to how the game went. While I thought the setting was really cool, the story was yet another tale of sex workers getting murdered, which is oh so original. This is also the first Telltale game where I actually played the episodes as they came out, as opposed to waiting until the entire season was done, and I felt this was a terrible option for me. I actually feel like the episodic 3 months between release is kind of a bad model in general. By the time the next episode came out, I didn't really remember what was going on in the first episode. I had sort of lost interest, and though I did play through the entire 5, I think, episodes of the game, it just wasn't all that interesting, and I started to really get upset at all of these sort of like telegraphed reactions, like Snow will remember that. Like by the 700th time they had told me that, I was like, I don't care what Snow will remember. Next up, another fairly new game. It was one of the Switch's sort of prime titles when it first came out, and that is Super Mario Odyssey. I am a big fan of the Mario platformers on the NES, on Super Nintendo, even like up to Super Mario 3D World or New Super Mario Brothers Wii U? I don't remember what it's called. It was a silly name, but it was a good game. So I like Mario platformers, but I do not like it as an open world game or as a more story heavy game. The open map segments of this game really did absolutely nothing for me. They might have been pretty to look at, but they weren't that interesting. I thought that as soon as you went down a pipe or something, and then you got to see like a little 2D one to platform your way through, or even some of the 3D ones where you were like the bullet guy and had to go through mazes. Those were interesting, but as soon as we went back to the big open map, I kind of lost interest. I didn't like the collectathon aspects of it. Collecting moons wasn't fun. It didn't do anything for me. I didn't like the few times when I had to go out and specifically look for more that I hadn't just gotten along the way in order to move on to the next world. And I also didn't like that really the only thing you could do with moons was buy outfits, because, I don't know, Mario is just not that much of a clothes horse for me. I don't really care what he's wearing. And then, just generally, I think as a character, It works better in a much simpler game. I don't think Mario is an interesting character. I don't think saving the princess from Bowser for the 300th time is an interesting story. So this was just basically nothing that I wanted from this franchise. It was just a bunch of open world, collecty kind of nonsense that I didn't like. I ended up stopping this at the end of New Donk City. I know a lot of people really liked that level. I really liked the end of that level where they had the whole Donkey Kong thing, but then as soon as it spit me back out into open world, I decided to give it up. And last but not least, just to get a retro game in here, I'm not a fan of DuckTales, which is a 1989 platformer. It's one of the Disney Capcom games, which are generally pretty good. This might just be a matter of how late I played it. I didn't actually try DuckTales until a few years ago. I played the remaster of it first, and I actually really liked the remaster, but when it came to playing the actual NES game, I really hated the bouncing on the cane mechanic, which is kind of weird because Shovel Knight basically took that whole mechanic, and I loved it in Shovel Knight, but something about the controls on the NES, it just wasn't a game that I meshed with in any way. And I also didn't like that the levels were so non-linear. I like linear. I just like knowing where I'm supposed to go. So DuckTales, again, probably not a bad game. I know a lot of people really enjoy it, but it just did not jive with my playstyle at all. So that's it for this video. Those are 7 games that are popular and well regarded that just didn't work for me. Let me know in the comments if there are any popular games that, don't work for you, anything similar, whether you agree or disagree with some of my choices here. That's it from Max Moo and I. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.